Okay, welcome back to another episode of the Shed Geek Podcast, and 2 years in the making. Today's episode, I'm so thankful everything finally came together. But Colin, you just want to introduce yourself a little bit about who you are and what you do, sir.
Sure. Yep. Colin Dexter. My business is Sound Data Solutions. We're a software provider, and of course, our flagship model is is Shed Software, which of course, pertains to shed manufacturing, a little bit of the retail business as well.
Okay.
And so that's how I got here.
Man, well, it's very cool visiting you here in Navarre. It's a pretty day. It's nice to be in beach country down here.
Yep.
Panhandle's always fun to come down to. You were one of the very first people I spoke with whenever
right. A couple of years ago.
whenever the podcast first came out, and we've just been trying to, I guess, communicate over that time to bring this together. I hear your name everywhere. It's
that's
such
good to hear.
Yeah, and it's good. So
That's even better.
I just it's finally good to actually put a face with the name, and
Yep.
somehow we just keep missing each other at shed events, and I apologize for that, but glad to do this, man. Glad to do this. So let's get into the process right away, and kind of tell me what got you into shed software. I can't help but think that you there's a story there, right?
Always is. Yep.
Yeah.
So, yeah, getting into the shed business and developing software for it actually goes back to my Air Force days. I was in the Air Force for 22 years, active duty, and what I did in there was I was a production controller in the vehicle maintenance shop there. Several different assignments, obviously, and the system that we had was this old DOS-based system. It was desktop, standalone. And it did a lot of things, had a lot of reports, but one thing that it didn't have is the ability for us to go in and write our own queries and develop our own reports. And so what they had was a method where we could convert the master files into ASC, or using old terminology, ASCII format. And from there, we would use a third-party program like in the 80s, we used Condor, then early 90s, DBase, eventually Microsoft Access, to draw that information in. And from there, we could write our own queries and reports and things like that. And so over the course of time, I started doing more and more, with Access, and got to where, I was actually, I could build, complete programs with it. Retired from active duty, then got hired back on into civil service, and doing the same basic type of job. And so I built a program managing training records, for Air Force personnel. Being in vehicle maintenance, I built a parts procurement program.
Okay.
Does a whole bunch of things. They can order parts with it. They can, it maintains a parts history, and so those two things kind of, got me going pretty good. And after a while, I started thinking, well, if I can do this here, it'd be kind of cool if I could get set up and do it downtown as well.
Mm-hmm.
And so I, put some thought into it, and, studied up a little bit about starting up a business and things like that. And one of the books I read was called $100 Startup, which was pretty much just, kind of thing saying, hey, man, write up a quick business plan and just go for it. Jump right in.
Yeah.
So that's pretty much what I did. I set up my LLC and, with Florida, printed up some business cards, and, things were a little bit slow, of course, getting started. So I joined a referral group over in Fort Walton Beach. And so I was there for about 6 months or so, and I got a referral from a lady over there. And it was to Advantage Portable Buildings in Fort Walton Beach. And, interestingly, I knew who they were already because I had bought a shed from them like 15 years ago when we first moved down here. And so I went and talked to, Kevin over there. And, they showed us what they wanted, and, kind of went from there, built a program for them. We talked about it, refined it quite a bit. And So they were telling me, it's like, hey, we looked around for 8 months trying to find some kind of software for the shed industry, and we couldn't. So you ought to take this program and market it out, because you most likely going to get some business from it. And, so I put together like a little mail out postcard campaign type thing with some information about it. And, sent that out and got, my first few customers I picked up off of that. And, they were very, very helpful, because they provided, feedback on what a shed manufacturer program should have in it. And so over the course of several years, I developed and developed and developed. And so, business was still, what I'd say a little on the slow side. And, I'm kind of thinking, man, how do I get more shed companies to talk to me? And so then, kind of by accident, I heard about this thing called Shed Builder Magazine.
Okay.
So I started advertising with Marty there. That brought some business in. Started going to the Shed Builder Expos,
Mm-hmm.
and that brought even more business in. And once you get a good client base built,
Word spreads.
Word
sure.
spreads.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The shed industry is very, very notorious for having good inside referral, I would say.
Yeah. Yep.
If you do well, everybody knows. If you don't do well, everybody and their friend knows, basically. Yeah. So you just, do a good job, I think. And I think that people really underestimate the power of a referral.
Right.
I think it's so important. Just selling sheds. I think about the important. People buy from people they trust. Well, they trust their neighbor more than they trust you. So if their neighbor had a good experience, they're gonna, they're likely gonna do that. So tell us a little bit about shed software. One thing I took away from that, which you said, they were like, "Hey, we can't find any shed software anywhere." Now it's everywhere.
It is right. And I think right about the time I was developing mine, there were a couple others going out at the Shed app they were building theirs.
Sure.
Shed Suite.
Uh-huh.
They were gearing up, and so probably within a couple of years of each other, we all kind of came to market. And Sheds is primarily on the the manufacturing process. It's much stronger in manufacturing than it really is on the sales, point of sale area. Although it can be used for that, we can print estimates, we can print purchase orders and things like that. But I have a couple of different versions of it. I've got 2 retail versions, and they're basically very simple, lightweight versions, as they call them. They're good for either someone just selling somebody else's sheds, or a small manufacturer with a single sales location. It's very low cost, but they can still figure out what their building costs are going to be, so they know what the profit's going to be, and which is obviously an important thing.
Certainly underestimated by a lot of shed manufacturers, just in conversations we've had. And you almost know that immediately by asking the question, what's the cost on your 10 by 16? And a lot of people will say this. Jonathan alluded to this early on in the podcast. They're not sure. We think we're making money, but we're not sure if we're making money. I think it's important to know you don't want to find out at the end of the year, whenever you're in front of the tax person, that you did not make money, right?
Don't want that.
How can you? So tell me how Sound Data Solutions kind of helps with that. What are the different ways that you measure those numbers?
The other version of the software, I call it the manufacturer module, and that's I describe that as the the heavy duty industrial strength version of sheds. And so in there, once a building is established in sheds, the manufacturer they'll go in and allocate their raw materials to the building. And part of the setup process is, we figure up, I make sheds calculate all of their other costs associated with manufacturing a shed. We set it up to calculate building costs the way they do it. Sales commissions, driver pay, their shop overhead, If they have a shop production manager, we figure his or her pay in there too. And so we get it so it calculates every bit of cost that they have with every building that they build. And from there, compare that to the retail price, and they've got their profit margin from that.
So the industry, I like to use the word, is fragmented in the way that the processes are. Not everybody does the same thing, from consignment lots to wholesale models to company-owned lots. Some that build in-house, some that purchase, on like a floor plan. There's just so many different areas that you're primarily touching the manufacturer to get the manufacturer numbers. I mean, that's one of the primary things you're doing. You can build the sales, you can build the purchase order out. What's been some of like your findings in that process? I would imagine you've got clients all about. You've been at this for how many years now?
Oh gosh, 2014 was when I built the first one.
Okay. You've probably seen several different models kind of that alludes to that fragmentation. How do you overcome that?
Well, one of the best things about this program is it's customizable.
Okay.
So everybody has their own copy of this program. And, there's no two copies of this out there.
Nice.
Every one of my customers has had me do little things, some of it just a few minor tweaks here and there. Some have had me build other significant capabilities into it, like a, service order functionality. And, from there, we're able to kind of adjust so that we can meet, many different business models that we're able to do. So that's kind of one of the things that helps us be able to support different building models.
Being customizable in a lot of ways is satisfactory to the customer service experience. A large part of our, community is the plane community.
Yep.
Technology, sometimes you have to try and figure out where that meets the plane community to be able to service their needs. What's been some of the challenges or that you found, or what's some of the success stories or the processes that you use to be able to overcome those barriers?
Yep. Okay, mostly being that this particular software, most of my customers, connect to my server environment and run it on there. However, it can also install and run on local hardware. And I have, several customers that do it that way. Some are just more comfortable not having their information out in the cloud, so to speak, and that's absolutely, certainly understandable. And, so we set it up and get it installed on their own local hardware. Some don't, they don't want to use the internet at all, but they're okay having a connection, for email and things like that. And, so doing that, I can kind of remote in and install it on their local hardware and, give them advice for linking, to other computers and things like that. And then, there's also, a few that don't have any internet connection at all. And so if it comes down to where we're mailing thumb drives back and forth, to get it installed, that's what we'll do. If we, in a lot of cases, we'll talk to like their local computer repair shop or the local IT shop that they use, some of which are within the plane community.
Sure. And
so we do whatever we have to do to get it set up and running on their local hardware.
What's some of the difficulties that you feel like we've had to experience where tech meets the shed industry? Obviously, being a conservative industry, like we've beat that horse several times here, I know, at the microphone, but we really do struggle with embracing technology sometimes from a sort of a conservative industry. I love listening to your explanations, and I think about you saying like D-Base is one of the examples. I think it might have been Jim Mosier early on that talked about how he was involved with that early on. And
yeah, we're giving away our age when we use terms like that.
Well, I appreciate that because I consider myself more of a shed geek than a tech geek. So I'm kind of amazed whenever I get to set with folks that I would consider just really smart in that particular area. What's some of the challenges that you just sort of had to overcome? Expand on SDS a little bit there.
Not really sure. The ultimate challenge is, I guess, getting into the communities that don't want a computer at all. And I've recently, had a couple of conversations with a couple of manufacturers, and we don't have computers, but we would like to be able to get information that the program can provide, mostly costing information. Mm-hmm. And so that's kind of one of the next frontiers, I guess, I'm going into, or challenges to tackle, is finding a way to serve that part of the community as well. Mostly getting established as kind of like a data management service, not just a software provider, to where we can get their information on paper or however we need to, build them a copy of the software, and provide reports on a weekly basis, monthly basis, whichever it would be. So that's kind of, the next big frontier to get into, I guess.
Sure, absolutely.
What I'd like to do.
Yeah, I'd love to ask you what other things you have coming out. That'll be feel free to share or whatever, and hold tight to your vest, whatever. So take me through the process. I found out about Colin at SDS, and what do? I give you a call. What's the process look like?
I usually get a call. Someone will tell, or an email. Someone says, "Hey, I saw your ad in Shed Builder, and just want some more information about it." And, so I can, talk to them over the phone about it, or, best thing to do is set up like a Zoom meeting. I can share my screen and I just walk through, feature by feature. And, we start out, basic things about it. You can track orders through the production process. Of course, it calculates all the costs. We talked about that earlier. And it has a raw materials inventory function in it. So when they complete a building and hit the complete checkbox, all those raw materials associated with the building deduct from the raw materials inventory. And then, when they order raw materials and they get an invoice from their supplier, they enter the invoice. That adds quantities back on to the inventory. And one of a common thing that I hear is it's like, sometimes we don't know, when we get busy, we don't know if we're going to have enough windows or enough, siding or enough, of anything to meet this sudden on-demand workload. And so I built a function in it, and I call it the obligated quantity and then projected on-hand quantity. So once they enter an order, so to speak, an order in a building is kind of the same thing. Once an order is moved into the order place status and then all the way through the build process, the materials associated with all of those buildings, they go into the obligated quantity column on the materials master list. And from there, that deducts from on hand, and you get a projected on hand quantity. And there's a report they can run every week. And, once all the materials get down to the established reorder point, then they'll show up on the reorder report. And then they know what they're going to get low on, what they're going to need, and they can, order them from that. And so it's got a schedule and delivery function on it. They can schedule production, for the following week, for the following month, whichever. It has a delivery load planning feature to it, or they can, take and select what buildings they want to put on what load. And, it'll tell you the total length of the buildings, the width on it. If you try and put too much on a 50-foot trailer, it's going to pop up a message saying, hey, you can't do that. It exceeds the capacity. And they can regroup from there. And they can also, schedule what days they want this delivered on. They can select which of their transport companies or which driver are going to take it, and that's pretty helpful. From part of the costing function is it can generate pay reports.
Okay.
And so if you want to run a report every 2 weeks or every week on your builder pay, then it's gonna grab all that information, put it into a report, building by building, what the building price is, what the commission is on it, and all that sort of a thing. And I'm kind of running through the sales pitch that I give people.
Go for it.
I know it's not exactly what you were asking. But,
no, that's I can continue. What I love is the ability to spell that process out.
Sure.
A lot of times you don't get the quiet and the calm enough to be able to do that. And for those interested, they'll appreciate that. I've gotten a lot of feedback. A lot of times it says, have more haulers on, so I'll have more haulers. I have more salespeople on, so I'll do that. But also get, feedback from a lot of people who appreciate, we call it a sales pitch, but a more in-depth dive of understanding of your product while it's quiet. They're mowing, they're going down the road, or they have questions. People buy from people they trust, right? So They want to know a little bit about who you are, and they want to know a little bit about the product ahead of time. So by all means,
okay,
I'm a student right now. So consider this Sheducation 101, and I'm just a shed geek right here in the front row listening, because all this stuff affects what we do. Yep. From everywhere that I go and traveling around all these different states. So carry on, sir. I'm enjoying this.
All right. And so we also can integrate with several other softwares. We started out with the configurators, of course. We've got one with Idea Room. We can integrate with Shed Pro. Just recently, 3D Structure app. And then also RTO National's dealer management system. And basically what they set up an API for us, we tap into it, and we just pull orders out, for our customers. And that basically that saves them from having to hand jam an order into the Sheds program. It just brings the customer information in, the building information in, the colors, the different options that are going to be on it. And so that cuts down on keystrokes and mouse clicks for them, and that helps out quite a bit. I've got a function where we can export completed buildings to QuickBooks as a QuickBooks invoice.
Well, and there's so many people in the industry that are familiar with QuickBooks. They're using that already, so that functionality is terribly important. It sounds like lots of integrations already that you work with in the industry. You find that integrating is, I like to say, rising tide lifts all boats, because Tyler Mahan said that early on in the show, and it kind of set the course for the show in many ways. You feel like integration works to all of our advantage in
I
some
think
ways?
So. Yeah. I've gotten customers from, the configurators.
Yeah, because your network.
And I believe some of my customers have gone to them as well.
That's what networking does.
Yeah,
I believe
it's
that.
Great.
Yeah, no,
it works out really well.
I quoted, I think it was Mr. Beast on the Chad Wilson episode, but it was something I read that morning that talked about how giving away is the new, it's the new way to expand. Right. Giving away communication, giving away information, giving away data, collaboration, as opposed to competition, is kind of what he talked about. That's how he became like the biggest YouTuber out there, is to just collaborate. So it's interesting to hear about all those collaborations and how they work for you,
right,
and not against you. It's easy to think, oh no, it'll work against me, but really, I think it's beneficial for the industry to try and come together where we can. And maybe I look at that from a customer perspective.
Right.
You work with the shed industry. You don't necessarily work with the end consumer, the purchaser of the shed.
Exactly.
But in any way that we can come together and on common ground, on the things that matter to us, you can still keep your competitive advantage
Sure.
here and there on what you need to. But generally speaking, the customer kind of sees us all as one thing,
Yep.
I think. So,
Yep. So when a customer decides to sign up and go for it, we send them out a spreadsheet with a whole bunch of different tabs on it. And, put down your building styles, all the sizes, prices of your buildings, your list of raw materials, colors, options, all kinds of things. And we load all that up for them. And once that's done, then we can kind of turn it over to them. We give them their user account credentials and things, show them how to connect to it. And, from there, some of that is kind of the ball's in their court now to kind of do
Sure.
their part, which involves, the biggest task, and that's a huge one, is getting raw materials allocated, to all the buildings and the options. That's a big process.
is that because of supply chain issues, you think, or is it volatile pricing?
It's just it's a keystroke and mouse click exercise.
You're saying to actually get them to enter the data.
Yes,
specifically.
yes.
Okay.
Yeah, because every manufacturer, they're between different sizes and models and styles.
Yeah.
They've got some of them have 200 or 300 buildings that they can potentially build. So it's a big project getting materials in on all those buildings. Yeah. So we got a little bit of functionality to help out with that. Once they get a set of materials in one building, they can copy it over to another building. And it's not perfect. They would still go in and adjust individual quantities and things like that, but it does cut down quite a bit on the amount of materials going into different buildings.
How much is software helping the shed industry? Like, in your opinion, what does automation, like what you're talking about, what does it do? I tend to think of a mom and pop. Especially a guy who's wearing multiple hats. You might be doing some manufacturing. You might be going on a delivery from time to time. Mm-hmm. I don't know. Maybe somebody in that $2 to $4 million a year sales range or something like that. And you wear a lot of hats. What do you feel like automation does for them?
Well, part of my my general business sales pitch is we make work easier. Because it cuts back on pen and paper.
Yeah.
It in the case of integrations, you can cut down on what I call double data entry. Mm-hmm. So it cuts down on that, but it's a way of having a one-stop shop to go in and pull information that you need to have in order to stay competitive, in order to be profitable, and all those kind of things. And, so it's software has become a huge thing in the shed business, and like, I think you kind of alluded to that once before.
Yeah. It seems like every time you either open up a new magazine, see a new Facebook post, or maybe in my case, have a new person on the show.
Yeah.
It seems like there's software constantly hitting the industry. Do you feel like that's because I just like to say we're not immune to the world, and this is the way the world is choosing to do business, post-COVID especially? The sales process, I feel like, has changed a lot. I'm not saying it'll completely go away. Some people fight against that, but I tend to think that most things that I read, like, consumers are deciding to shop different. Right. And we have to meet those customers where they are. Saves you time with automation because you're saving yourself money, because you are saving yourself time where you can allocate your time to more important tasks.
Right, exactly.
Let the software do its job, and you go do what is more important.
Yeah, but that's where the configurators come in quite a bit. Is just because everybody, they say, 80% of people, check out a product online before they go and buy it and things like that.
Yeah.
And I'm guilty of that myself.
Same here.
I love buying things online and having it show up at the door a couple of days later.
At least looking like at what you're going to go buy. I think people do that with sheds way more than you think. That kind of just leads into a segue for a need for marketing. I mean, I'm not saying you have to have it, so maybe needs a strong word. You can survive without it. But I think the guys who are hungry, who have websites, good websites that are well read, that you can understand and has good funnels for the customer to get to and information of where they need to go. I think those things are important. Obviously, all of your ads, that your sales ads. And that's why we recently did some stuff on content creation. Even the podcast, I loved what Dan said on the Chat GPT episode. He was talking about, I liked it because I'm a podcaster, but he said, the podcast is content creation. This is content creation for SDS right now. You take this clip, and cut it up, put it on your own socials and your website if you choose to, if you want to. And you've got, 45 minutes, 50 minutes of content creation that you can help explain your sales process to your customer. Because that's what we're doing here, recording it today, right? To tell people about. So I have an appreciation for tech. I haven't always been super techie. I'm kind of happy to even have learned what I have over the last couple of years. But I could just be a student of you, Colin. Dude, I could sit for a day and probably learn so much. It scares me a little because it's intimidating. If you don't
some
understand
of it still is to me too.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, that's good to know.
I know what I know best, and those are the products I use. But occasionally, kind of dipping outside of my comfort zone, so to speak, with coding and things like that. Some of that, even as long as I've been doing this, some of the other stuff out there looks kind of intimidating as well. But it's just a matter of learning the areas that you're going to use, and the things that are going to benefit you and things you're comfortable with.
How do you address that with your customers who aren't comfortable using? You talked about sending flash drives or thumb drives back and forth. I believe that a lot of times people just need walked through that process.
Yeah.
Are you able to provide that customer service that makes them feel comfortable with that?
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. There's with most customers, I have quite a few phone calls and text messages, emails, things like that. And if we need to do follow-on Zoom sessions where I can share my screen to show them how to do things, we do that. So I can send them some information on paperwork to show them how to allocate materials and things like that to buildings. And all the support for questions and answers and things like that, that's all free. It's all included. And what I've found, the more people come back and ask questions, the more questions that are asked in the beginning, the longer they'll typically stay around and provide follow-on business through customization.
Always heard an ounce of prevention's worth a pound of cure. Growing up. Yep. And it's the same way when you're going into business. It's the same way when you're learning anything. Better to ask all the questions up front.
Right.
It just avoids you a lot of the pain points through the process later on. So you handle a lot of this in-house. I didn't think to ask you that. Do you have a team? Do you handle?
There's 3 of us all together.
Okay.
And so we've got, I do probably, the 90% of everything.
Okay.
My son Christopher, he helps me out with it. He can do some of the development work.
Awesome.
And, he's kind of like the background guy and knows enough about the business to where he can keep it going, if I want to go on vacation or whatever. So,
Now, why go on vacation when you got this beautiful place right here in Navarre? Like, where do you go on vacation to?
Anywhere but Navarre.
Okay. You go up north or something,
yeah,
right?
we go up north. I'm originally from Massachusetts, Cape Cod, so, every couple of years we'll have a trip up there.
Okay.
My son and I will go skiing every once in a while up north.
That's fun. That sounds fun. Yeah.
My wife and I will go over to Gulf Shores or Orange Beach.
Yeah.
Every once in a while, and stay in a condo on the beach over there.
We were here.
It's a real nice place to spend a weekend occasionally.
I wish I'd have known a year ago, because a year ago we were here. A year ago this week we were here. It just happened to show up on my Facebook timeline, and I was like, man, if I'd have known, we'd have brought down the equipment. We could have got an episode back then, but I didn't realize you were this close to Orange Beach. I guess I didn't realize exactly where you are.
Yeah. But so then I've got another guy, my senior developer, advanced developer, Leo. He's out in California, and he does some of the more advanced work for. He does all the super advanced work and initial integrations and things like that. So he's very, very helpful. And he is a Microsoft Access MVP, Most Valuable Professional. And so he has a wealth of knowledge.
Nice.
I'm very fortunate to have both these guys, to fall back on from time to time.
What's your confidence in the shed industry now, 2023? Like, what do you feel like we're seeing? What direction are we going as an industry? And even to expand on that, maybe even carports, accessory buildings. And I'm seeing just down here, one of the things that I always try to take away from, maybe it's all the time because you have so much sunshine down here, but I'm seeing just a lot of greenhouses down here. My wife is looking and trying to figure out how we get a greenhouse back on the RV. I don't think it's going to work, but we're seeing these all the time, small, large. Is that something you guys have? I feel like people after COVID went into like this prepper mode in some ways. Chicken coops seem to have sold a lot more.
Well, everybody, a good lot of the working population wasn't going to work.
Yeah.
So what do people do? Well, they stayed at home. What do people do when they stay at home? Well, they fix up the yard, fix up the house, and things like that. And that's where there was, during COVID, every one of my customers, they had 3 to 6 months or longer backlog because there were so many shed orders coming in.
Yeah.
And, of course, now it's leveled off and everybody's pretty much worked through their backlog. And so, I don't know for sure. I suspect maybe the demand's going to slow down a little bit. Just because there was such a boom and the graph line, so to speak, went so high so quick.
It's almost bound to come down. And level back.
Yeah,
up
whatever goes up really fast, it's going to come back down. It's not, sheds aren't going to go away. Absolutely not.
Yeah.
But I would expect sales are going to be a little bit slower industry wide than they were 22, 21, and 20.
What are ways that they could help from a tech perspective to increase those sales? What's your thoughts on that?
That goes back to everybody else you probably had on this podcast, which is marketing.
Yeah.
Marketing.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely it really is. It's kind of like, you don't need to spend money on any of that whenever things are good. But it's the number one thing you tend to have to spend money on when sales are down. So it's hard to spend the money because you're not seeing the sales.
Yeah.
So then you think to myself, I've got to make sure I know my numbers.
Yep.
To your point, using a system to make sure that you're aware of if your shed is making money or if it's not. That way you know how much to put into things like marketing. What's the famous speech, half your marketing dollars work, just nobody knows which half. Mm-hmm. That comes back to the idea of measuring, and I struggle with that constantly. Trying to be a connector is one thing that I really enjoy doing, so connecting people in the shed industry, but figuring out where that value is through that connection can sometimes be hard to measure. Sometimes it's hard to put a number on, so I just feel like if I keep listening to God and doing the right things, it'll work out. And so that's where I'm putting my faith. And
yeah, absolutely.
So, I don't know any other way to be. I really don't. I joke with Deanna all the time and say, hey, if this don't work out, we're driving a truck till I finish out, because we're going to stay on the road one way or the other. And who knows? Maybe I'll drive a truck and I'll still interview shed people.
Sure.
Out and about.
I predict that you're going to be around for a while. You're a natural at this.
Well, Appreciate that. I appreciate the kind words. I think if you find what you're supposed to be doing, that helps a lot.
Yeah, and if you enjoy that.
Absolutely. I'm not necessarily the biggest proponent of Grant Cardone, but I was reading something of him recently. I don't dislike Grant in any way. I just probably have a different approach. But one of the things that I read that he said something recently. He said, if what you're doing doesn't scare you a little bit, you're not taking a big enough risk. If there's no fear whatsoever, then you're way too comfortable.
When I first started up my business, I had a little bit of that fear. At times I'm thinking, oh my God, what am I getting myself into here?
Yeah, that's the thing. You come out of the Air Force and you were trying to find something to do, or just using your expertise to kind of add on that. Yeah. I mean, Shed's kind of fell into your lap with was it, did you say Advantage?
Advantage Portable over in Fort Walton Beach.
Yeah, that kind of just fell into your lap through this referral group. So
fell into my lap,
yeah. And now look.
I know. Yep.
So people buy from people they trust. Who's Colin? Who is Colin outside of SDS?
Well, he's a retired Air Force guy. Went and worked civil service on Herbert Field in Eglin Air Force Base for 18 years. So between active duty and civilian service, it's 40 years altogether.
Oh, man. Thank you. Thank you for your service.
Very welcome.
Absolutely.
Thank you. And, tremendous opportunities, especially while you're on active duty, to travel. I had 2 tours in Panama, down the Panama Canal Zone. And over in England, Lakenheath, England.
Nice.
Went, I was up in Virginia area for a while, further south in Avon Park, Florida, which is a little bit north of Sebring. And amongst that, I had several short trips that I take, TDY or temporary duty.
Okay.
So I deployed to Saudi Arabia a couple of times. Went to United Arab Emirates, Kuwait, Bahrain.
Wow.
Did those, went to Italy, Germany, Scotland. And I think this is actually more to it. I just can't think of them right now. But a lot of traveling and a lot of opportunity, to take quite a bit in and learn a lot about the rest of the world.
Yeah.
And we are very, very lucky, blessed people to be Americans.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of people out there that they think we're bad and we're evil and it's just all horrible. But people like that, they have no idea how good we have it and how not so good it is in most of the rest of the world.
I heard that.
Yep.
I heard that.
We are truly blessed
That's
for being born in the United States of America.
Yeah, we're Mark chapter 6, verse 4, I think it was. I heard it's a friend of mine who actually is an associate pastor as well and logistics manager for Shed Company. I remember he preached a message one time, and he's a good friend of mine, and he said, no man is without honor except for in his hometown among his family and friends, and talked about how Jesus' brother didn't believe he was the Messiah and how he had to go out. Relating those stories, Jesus spoke in parables. I mean, the same way that we learn a lot of times is, hey, this is like this because of this. He set the tone for that. So for me, that parable meant a lot of times you're just not going to be able to get out from underneath that, who you are. So when you're born in this country, a lot of times you don't travel. They say Americans, travel like less than most other countries. So you don't get to see because it's like living in a vacation home. Where do you go on vacation? Like you live
somewhere else in America. Yeah, for the most part.
Yeah. So and it's such a big country, that you literally can travel from New York to LA, and you don't get out and get to see just how well we do have it.
Yeah.
And I think the shed industry, I think we can relate that as in like being able to be in business in America on top of that. Early on in the episode, Josh Villalobos said He's from Costa Rica. He said Americans don't realize how many opportunities they have. They just need to pick one sometimes. Just pick one and go stick
after
with
it.
it. Yeah. There's so much opportunity. You don't know where to. Why the Shed Geek podcast works? It's very niche down. Mm-hmm. It's. People ask me all the time, like, "Hey man, I'm thinking about starting a podcast. Like, what should I do one on? You seem like you got it figured out. What should I do one on?" And I'm like, "Oh man, you shouldn't do one if that's your starting point."
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
You know what? My next comment is exactly what you said. What do you like to do? What do you enjoy doing? And what are your passions? And what are you passionate about talking about? Because that's what will resonate with the audience. It doesn't take much to be a good speaker. Being a good speaker just involves being passionate. The rest you'll learn. The rest you'll figure out. You'll crash and burn a couple of times, then you have to get back up. I heard a pastor say, if you fail, get back up and try again. And if you fail, get back up and try again. And if you fail, get back up and try again. And if you fail again, write a book on all the things you did wrong. There's something to be learned in everything that you're doing. You just got to find it. But I think your passion is really what matters. Your passion obviously comes through on this. And on top of this, you're like everyone else in the industry. You had a passion for flying.
Yeah.
And not even because you were in the Air Force.
No, the Air Force had a little to do with it. Although I learned to fly at Langley Air Force Base as a hobby. But I don't have much for hobbies just because flying airplanes was such a passion.
Yeah.
And I enjoyed it so much. Everything about it, I was addicted to it.
Yeah.
If I wasn't flying, I was reading a flying magazine.
Yeah.
Or studying for my instrument rating or whatever else it was. And so I got my private ticket and flew for about a year or so and started working on the instrument rating. And so toward the end of that, started not feeling right, and had a little bit of episodes here and there. Nothing serious, I didn't think. But so when the doctor got checked out and found out I had a very mild form of epilepsy. Okay, and so I actually I planned things out so I could finish the instrument rating. Okay, before I was officially diagnosed, before I started medication and things like that. So I finished that up. And then, these symptoms came up often enough to where I had to, I didn't want to, but I had to, go in and find out what's going on. And so, neurological things are some of the deal killers when it comes to getting a medical certificate from the FAA.
Yeah.
And so, the symptoms themselves, the condition itself is mostly disqualifying. And, from a personal standpoint, well, I take a pill once a day and it takes care of the problem. But then the medication itself is disqualifying.
Yeah.
So
when the cure is as bad as the cause, sometimes, or maybe not as bad, but yeah.
But so I loved it so much. I'd pay an instructor just to go fly with me, so to be legal and still fly. And I did that for a while, and it wasn't the same though, because a lot of what I liked about flying airplanes is just knowing that I'm relying on my own skills and my own knowledge, to get to where I'm going or to get back to where I took off from. And, when you got someone next to you that, that, I don't know, I guess you could say knows more than you do about it, there's a constant fallback there.
Yeah.
Which is, redundancy is a good thing. That's why, commercial airlines have two pilots in them. But from the personal perspective of really getting what I was getting out of it, it just wasn't there anymore. So I kind of said, this is going to have to go. Plus it got, paying an instructor is, another, I don't know, $30 an hour or so.
Yeah.
On top of what you're paying, for the aircraft. And, so I started getting away from it and like, I don't know, man. So that was a big disappointment for a while. I was pretty down and out about it. But, then I started thinking, it's like, really, I mean, I know other people that have a lot, my age that have a lot worse, medical conditions.
Sure.
And so if this is the worst that it is for me, then
got it pretty good.
I got it pretty good.
It's all about perspective.
I'm blessed. Yeah. Yeah. So, I kind of, came out of it and I like working out in my yard. I don't really have much for hobbies really, just because, nothing comes close to flying airplanes, even though I don't do it anymore.
You just put your passion into sound data solutions, right?
Basically, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. I enjoy developing software and putting out a product that can make things easier, for somebody else. So, yeah, that's pretty cool.
So, somebody hears the episode and they say, "I want to know more about SDS, about sound data solutions." And Colin, I want to call him, have a discovery call, a conversation. How do they reach out to you?
Telephone, email.
All right.
Contact from the website, text.
Everything's pretty much on your website, I would assume.
Yeah, just in case, 850-374-1548. That's the quickest way to get a hold of me. And, if I'm not able to take a call right then and there, please absolutely leave a message and, I will get back to you.
No, that's great.
Absolutely. I appreciate the, the interest and, I don't pick up every lead as a customer that I have, but I still enjoy talking to people about the shed business and talking about my software. So
it's a good example
it's okay.
of there's room for all of us. I think is what that boils down to. Not picking up every lead, I think is okay. Again, the rising tide lifts all boats is kind of expanded into you don't have to take a bigger market share. We can just create a bigger market because I believe that the sheds, accessory buildings, even whenever sheds are through the roof, I mean, you're seeing people buy other structures like chicken coops and greenhouses and cabanas and just different things. There's always something to sell. And I think it's really just about making a bigger piece of the pie and a better customer experience. And sheds has become, somebody told me the other day, he said we have 80 by 120 in the backyard, and we call that our shed.
Oh my gosh.
Even though it's a big post frame building. So I've even had to reevaluate my own process to take a look at what does it mean? How do sheds and accessory buildings fit in? Just started writing in Garage Shed Carport Builder magazine, Gary Reichert, and reading that has kind of brought to the forefront to me that sheds is more than just shed. Sometimes there's a whole thing that goes around this. The shed's the common denominator.
Yeah.
Oftentimes, but there's so many other things, from furniture to greenhouses to playhouses to play sets and accessory and carports. And I really want to start doing some interviewing some guys in carports, because too many shed guys I know are just involved in carports on some level.
Yeah. Yep.
So I want to find out more about that. My wife's coming on full time with me. That's why we're on our inaugural trip here in the RV.
Cool.
Down in Gulf Breeze, and hanging out with a friend, and got to visit with another friend here today.
Yep.
So it's kind of cool to be on vacation and get to meet people. She's coming on full time. She is actually one of those data entry people.
Ah, okay.
She's very good and very sharp at that. So I'm actually going to maybe I'm going to make a plea, or maybe this is that. If anybody's looking for data entry, she can definitely do that. We want to, while we're traveling, and since she's coming on with me full time, we want to try to find some ways for her to work mobilely. So if anybody's got any interest, by all means, let me know. And the Geekette will
the Geek and the Geekette.
Yeah, that's right. She'll be able to interview with you and see if she can help you out in some way.
Okay. I'm going to keep that in mind, because I already have an idea.
Hey, I'm all ears.
Relating to my software and who else we can serve.
I'm all ears. Appreciate you and what you do. I've heard your name in so many countless conversations, and I'm glad we got to finally put this together.
Sure. Yeah,
you got such a kind personality.
Thank you.
I feel like I could learn from you from a tech perspective, and I appreciate that, because it takes all of us to make this world go round, right? And
Absolutely.
Thank goodness for people like you that are in the field that you're in to be able to do that. And man, I hope more collaborations and things like that come together.
Yeah,
for sure. And hope you get some customers off of this. So.
More customers.
More customers is always
good.
a good
Always
thing.
good.
Listen, I'm a fan of prayer here on the podcast. You care if I just close this out in prayer? Anything else that you wanted to share?
No, I don't think so.
Oh, good.
Yeah, absolutely. Go right ahead.
Okay. All right.
Yep.
Lord, thank you for this day. Thank you for friends and conversations like today, both on air and off air. It's just really nice to get to connect with people. And I know that you would want us to do that. So thank you for continuing to guide the path for all of us here in this industry as we strive forward today. Ask that you would be with any families in need that come in to hear this message or this podcast platform. Ask that you would bless them, bless the industry as a whole. Remind us that all that we do is for you. Never let us forget that, the sacrifices that your son made. We thank you. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Thanks so much, Colin. Appreciate you being on today.
Oh, you're very welcome. Thank you for coming down and interviewing me.
A lot of fun.